almost couldn't believe it was real, but oh, it is real. Look at this tweet by the Associated Press. It says, survivors of Israel's pager attack on Hezbollah struggle to recover. So you remember what that was, right? Israel's Mossad, their spy agency, cooked up a plan so fanciful, if it were a Hollywood movie script, the studios would have rejected it, saying it was too hard to believe. Israeli agents managed to convince Hezbollah, their enemy, their rival group, to replace their cell phones with lower tech beepers and pagers, sort of, 1990s technology, saying that by switching to low-tech alternatives, Israel wouldn't be able to hack them and spy on them. So Hezbollah bought thousands of these pagers, but they were actually made by Israel. Israel set up, some fake companies or whatever. Hezbollah, just so you know, is a terrorist group funded by Iran. They had 100,000 rockets in Lebanon aimed at Israel, such a huge number that there would simply be no way for Israel to knock them down, even with their high-tech Iron Dome system. It was such a strategic problem. And Lebanon really was powerless to stop them. They were like an occupational army. Israel managed, though, to get pagers into the hands of pretty much the entire management structure of Hezbollah. And at one precise strategic moment, the pagers were activated. So they all beeped at the same time. And then when the Hezbollah users pressed the button, they detonated. So you had to wait till the button was pressed so it wouldn't go off. It was like on a dresser or you had to pick it up and push the button and it would explode. And there was enough explosive hidden in the pagers that it killed or injured around 3,000 terrorists in 5 minutes, in 1 minute. They had a second wave where walkie-talkies were blown up too. Israel didn't just sell them pagers with little explosives in it, walkie-talkies, and that took out another 450 terrorists. Now, it didn't kill most of them, but it seriously injured them, knocking them out of action. You can imagine you pick up a pager, you hold it like that, and you look at it, and you push the button. It might make you blind even, or blow up your hand. It was a way to take the terrorists out of action. Talk about a hyper-accurate weapon, too. Almost no collateral damage. Perhaps the most effective targeting of an enemy in history. I'm trying to imagine something more effective. And the psychological blow that it dealt to the organization was incalculable, too. Israel did need other weapons to take out the absolute big boss of Hezbollah, effectively knocking out the entire leadership of the organization. There simply was no one left to give any orders. Hezbollah, in some ways, the most terrifying part about the terrorist ring around Israel, was undone in the press of a button. It really was a miracle on a biblical level. Oh, and look at what doors that has opened. Lebanon, which in its own way was victimized just as much by Hezbollah as Israel was, because Hezbollah dominated Lebanon, especially the south, and it was more powerful and vicious than Lebanon's own government. Hezbollah was really an occupying army by Iran. But look at what's possible now that they're wiped out. I'll just read to you from a quote from the Lebanese government minister of information, who said, quote, "We agreed to end the armed presence in all of Lebanon's territory, including Hezbollah, and deploy the Lebanese army in the border areas." This is so amazing. This is so important that the Lebanese government, with American help, obviously, will assert its sovereignty over the whole country again and kick out this terrorist group again. It is amazing. And it's so clearly part of a larger peace plan involving Israel, Lebanon, America, and others. Imagine if Lebanon could join the Abraham Accords peace deal. Lebanon was once so beautiful and peaceful that Beirut, its capital city, was called the Paris of the Middle East, until it was taken over by Palestinian terrorists, first under Yasser Arafat. And by the way, Lebanon had a lot of Christians, but they were gradually purged from the country. Looks like Israel's miracle attack removed the impediment, and that country may yet see peace and prosperity again. I'm so excited. So back to that Associated Press story that I mentioned. Let me read this story. Survivors of Israel's pager attack on Hezbollah struggle to recover. Just Just turn those words over in your mind. Imagine that headline about any other terrorist group. Survivors of America's attack on al-Qaeda struggle to recover. Survivors of America's attack on Nazi Germany struggle to recover. Hezbollah is a terrible, murderous force. They're terrorists. They're not a national army. Their destruction is giving birth to peace for the first time in 50 years, but the Associated Press cares about the terrorists and their struggle to recover, and it was so unfair for Israel to use a sneaky move like that. Do you see how the media are your enemy? Speaking of pro-terrorist propagandists, here is a CBC story out today. Anti-Palestinian racism report calls for Canada to recognize May 15th as Nakba Day. York University researchers want more oversight of education, policing, and politics. Let me quote a little bit. A new report from the Islamophobia Research Hub at York University, that sounds like a lovely place, calls on governments across Canada to increase oversight on how universities, schools, police forces, and parliament deal with the recent spike in instances of anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian racism. By the way, Palestinian isn't a race. It's not a religion either. It's not an ethnicity. It's not a language. Palestine was never a country. It was always part of other countries. For example, Gaza was part of Egypt, and the West Bank was part of Jordan. Jordan today is geographically most of what historically was called Palestine. Palestine was what the British called that area when it was under their control, but phrases like the Palestine Post or the Palestine Brigade that fought for the British on the side of the Allies in the Second World War, that's what they called the Jews in that region. Today, Palestinians are Arabs, typically Muslims. They speak Arabic. They're ethnically Arabic. Nakba Day refers to the day when Israel and a new Arab country were both born by virtue of a United Nations resolution. This was 75 years ago. Now, the Jews were thrilled with their new country called Israel. The Arabs, not so much. They celebrated by attacking Israel, with 5 Arab nations getting in on it. They sought to immediately snuff out Israel, really the day it was born. It was another miracle. The Arabs lost that war, and they call it a Nakba, a tragedy. They want that commemorated in Canada as some sort of Canadian day, and they want criticism of Palestinians to be called racism. It's not a race, but they want it called racism as opposed to what it often is. Canadians are sort of sick of anti-Semitism and terrorism in our country. Here's who the CBC put on their TV segment about this, complaining about racism.
Some say they felt that firsthand. This man protesting the war in Gaza does not want to reveal his name. He says he's been a target of campaigns the report warns about.
We were at the mall, and I have a little sticker in the back of my car that says, Free Palestine, with a little kufiye, and it was reported online with my license plate number.
Got it. So you're dressed like a terrorist. You're hiding your face. You're calling for the destruction of Israel, but people who think you're wrong are racists, really. There's a reason not a single Arab country is willing to take Palestinian refugees. They caused the civil war in Jordan. They caused the civil war in Lebanon. They caused the civil war in Syria. But Canada is welcoming them incredibly. Well, saying that supporting Hamas is gross and terrorist is precisely what these activists want to be able to stop. Their agenda is censorship and propaganda. I'm not going to read this whole CBC story to you, but let me read a little bit. Provincial governments should develop curriculum, train staff, and educate students on Palestinian culture, identity, and history, including the history of the Nakba, the report published Wednesday said. Could you imagine? Actually, you probably can imagine. It's pretty much happening now. They want to censor the media, including the already insanely pro-terrorist CBC. I'll quote a bit. They say, a letter sent to CBC signed by more than 500 members of the Racial Equity Media Collective asking the public broadcaster to, quote, address an apparent pattern of anti-Palestinian bias, Islamophobia, and anti-Palestinian racism within the corporation's news and documentary culture. Are you kidding me? The CBC, just so you know, they literally have an editorial policy banning reporters from calling Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists, even though they are legally deemed as terrorists by the Canadian government and about 100 others. But they're not pro-Palestinian enough?